I was going to just post an infographic, but I'm so passionate about postpartum thyroid and having more awareness around it, and I felt like a video would be better. And I just wanted to share my experience. So I have felt like my thyroid levels have been off really probably since I was a teenager, at least since college. And they always came back quote unquote normal, which I now know was not optimal, but they were in normal range. But about 3.5 years ago, I gave birth to my son, Cooper. And I felt off pretty immediately after giving birth. I was up cleaning the closets at 3 a.m. during that small window that he was going back to bed. I had mood swings. I was not myself whatsoever. I went from that energy level to then crashing and feeling extremely tired. I had a ton of anxiety. My hair was just coming out in huge chunks. I could ball them up in chunks in the shower. And everyone around me just really chalked that up at first to, oh, this is just postpartum. This is just how you're supposed to feel postpartum. And as months went on, I started to wonder, do I have postpartum anxiety? And I kind of kept that inside, but I questioned that in my head. And about 5 months later, it was on Mother's Day, I had these intense stomach pains, and they were so bad that I had to go to the emergency room that night. And while I was sitting in the waiting room on Mother's Day, they started to go away a little bit, and I decided this is not where I want to spend my first Mother's Day, and I'm feeling a little bit better, so I went home. And the next day, I had an appointment with one of the doctors from there, and I will forever be grateful for this doctor, and she thought to test my thyroid. And I had actually had a second test 3 months later with my OBGYN because I fell off, but that's actually not normal. Most of the time you're only tested at your 6-week appointment, and that's only if you have family history of thyroid, which I did. And so even at my 3-month check postpartum, I had normal, quote unquote, levels of thyroid. I think my TSH was 3.5. And normal levels are from 0 to 5. Not optimal, but normal. And so I had my blood work done, and I ended up having a TSH of 150. And that, my OBGYN actually called me and said that was the second highest level she'd ever seen in her practice. And she was getting ready to retire. And so I was referred and sent to an endocrinologist who works with basically the metabolic functions in your body. I was put right away on levothyroxine, and later I was actually diagnosed with Hashimotos, which is an autoimmune disease. And it essentially, to really make it very basic, your body thinks that your thyroid is a foreign invader. And so your body is attacking your thyroid. And what happens is it's a genetic disease, and it can lay dormant and nothing can ever happen. Or you can have a big lifestyle event or shift that can move it into the symptoms of hypothyroid. And there's also Graves' disease, which is the opposite and would move it into hyperthyroid. And so just like my mom had, and we believe my grandma as well, pregnancy was what did it for me. 5 months later, my body pushed into a very extreme level of hypothyroidism. My mom actually has Graves' disease, which I encouraged her to get tested after years of just thinking she had hypothyroid, and now she understands she has an autoimmune disease. But with medicine, leveled out on the numbers, but it took a lot of lifestyle changes for me to actually see any results, because it is an autoimmune disease, and so there's various things going on in your body. So for me to feel optimal and better, I had to make a ton of lifestyle changes in conjunction with my medicine. So over 2 years later, I felt really balanced. It probably took me about a year of really working on this. We even lowered my level of thyroid medicine. And fast forward to my pregnancy with Palmer, my thyroid was all of a sudden going in the opposite direction, so to hyperthyroid, except that my TSH levels were getting dangerously low, while my T4 levels were still low. So low T4 would be hypothyroid. And during this time, this is obviously not at all good and very dangerous for the baby. And during this time, my endocrinologist left her practice. My OBGYN was not sure what to do. We kept lowering my medication and nothing was working. It was just kept trending in the same direction. And I was lucky, beyond lucky, to get into my mom's endocrinologist, who does not take patients normally, but because of the severity of this in my pregnancy, she took me on. And this continued. My endocrinologist scheduled me with monthly appointments postpartum, so that we would check my blood work monthly postpartum, and regular appointments through my pregnancy. And after a while, my endocrinologist said she believes I also had postpartum thyroiditis, which is essentially where your thyroid goes very high into hyperthyroid, and then it will eventually have this very large crash and go into hypothyroid. And some people actually recover from that and then never have a thyroid disease again. But with me having an autoimmune disease, I have stayed on hyperthyroid. This felt like this could really be my story, because it really matched up with what happened with Cooper and what I was feeling. I just didn't have the blood work at the time to match it up. So that being said, when you are hyperthyroid, when you're used to being hypothyroid, at first the symptoms can feel like, oh, this is great because you have a ton of energy, you're really motivated, go-getter. I was very positive and happy. It was quite an opposite experience, but the problem with it is it's also very dangerous, especially on your heart. So we kept track of it, and all of a sudden one week, I was so exhausted that I was taking multiple naps, and I was having major mood swings, and I was very irritable. I was just not myself. And even knowing that eventually I would have a crash, I still forgot about that in my mind and thought, oh my gosh, am I having postpartum anxiety again? And then I went and got my blood work, and it tipped me off to think, did I have my crash? And sure enough, clear as day in the blood work, I had my crash, but this time I actually got to catch it as it was crashing, so it didn't get anywhere nearly as bad as my levels went before. So now it's been 2 months. I have had zero energy, zero motivation. I have not been like myself. It's very hard for me to see the positive in things. And it took about it took 2 months. And this last week, I finally feel so much better like myself. I'm not optimal. I'm still having a little bit of brain fog, and we're dealing with hair loss. But the monthly appointments have really, really helped because we're able to stay on track of the thyroid and adjusting medicine, and just I have worked really hard as much as I can when I'm feeling in those low energy levels to do the lifestyle modifications to get me feeling better. So all this to say, postpartum thyroid symptoms, postpartum hormone symptoms, and even sometimes some of the postpartum like anxiety, they can all look so similar. And so my message here today, I'm not a medical professional. My message is to just take a deeper look if you're feeling off. I was very grateful in this thyroid journey. I was very lucky, I should say, to have 2 doctors that took a deeper look. And that's not always normal, and sometimes you have to be your own advocate. But if you're not feeling right and you're feeling off, don't let others just tell you that that's just postpartum. Get it checked out, and get help where you need it, whether that is through therapy or getting blood work. And honestly, I would recommend both. But if you're feeling off, trust your gut, and just don't let others tell you that it's wrong. So I hope just sharing a little bit of my journey helps a little bit, and just knowing that there's someone else going through it. And I shared on the slide some of the symptoms, and you'll notice that there are a lot of the symptoms that are common with postpartum, but you know in your gut if something is feeling off, and so just listen. I hope you have a great day.